Hey there, and welcome. Every single week, the White House just unleashes this flood of official stuff, right? We're talking proclamations, executive orders, fact sheets. It's a lot. And trying to keep up with it all can feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. So, what we're going to do here is take just 1 week's worth of these official documents and really unpack them. Let's see what kind of story they're really telling when you put all the pieces together.
All right, so let's just start with the sheer range of stuff that came out last week. I mean, it is all over the place. For example, on one hand, you've got these huge economic policy shifts, things like new tariffs on trucks and buses. And then, in the very same week, you see these massive foreign policy announcements. We're talking about something being framed as a truly historic peace deal for Gaza. And it doesn't stop there. You've also got these documents that dig into the nitty-gritty of how the government itself runs. I mean, a complete overhaul of how they hire people for federal jobs. And mixed in with all that heavy stuff, you have the day-to-day business of the presidency, right? The ceremonial things, proclamations for the Navy's 250th birthday, remembering General Pulaski. It's a real mix, and yeah, it is a lot to take in. So, the big question is there a method to this madness? Is there some common thread tying all of this together, or is it just a bunch of random noise? Well, at first glance, it really does look disconnected. But if you start to look a little closer, especially at the language they use, some really clear themes, these strategic pillars, they start to pop out. So let's break them down.
All right, pillar number one, the big one, really, is this idea of an America-first economy. It's all about focusing on domestic industry. And this isn't just a one-off thing. It's a story, a narrative that's woven through a whole bunch of different announcements from the week.
So a great example is this new proclamation about vehicles. And what's super interesting here is the why. They don't just say we're doing it. They point to a very specific piece of law, Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. And the documents are crystal clear on this. These tariffs are happening because, officially, these imported trucks and parts are being called a threat to national security. That's a big deal.
And the results? A whopping 25% tax. That's what ad valorem duty means, on these big imported trucks and their parts. The way it's framed in these papers is really telling. It's not just a simple trade tweak. Nope, it's positioned as an absolutely necessary move to protect the American industrial base, which they say is crucial for our military and our infrastructure. And this is where you really see the strategy. The documents are meticulous about connecting the dots. They create this clear cause and effect story. Look at the vehicle tariffs. The reason is national security, and the result they point to, a huge $13 billion investment from Stellantis. Or take drug pricing. The reason is to stop global freeloading, and the result, they highlight lower costs for IVF meds. Same with energy. The goal is unleashing American energy, and they tie it directly to gas prices hitting a 4-year low. It's policy A leads to positive result B. Every time. And this whole America First idea carries right over into healthcare. The big phrase they use is ending global freeloading. Their fact sheets lay out the problem pretty starkly. Americans are paying more than 3 times what people in other developed countries pay for the exact same brand name drugs. So what's their solution? Something called most favored nation pricing. Basically, it's about making deals so that the US pays no more than the lowest price paid by any other developed nation. And to really hammer this point home, the articles are full of good news about domestic investment. They frame it as direct proof that these protectionist policies are working. They're not shy about naming names either, specifically pointing to that $13 billion from Stellantis, $300 million from Whirlpool, and $30 million from GE Aerospace. The message is clear. Our strategy is bringing manufacturing back to America. Okay, so let's shift gears. That was the economic pillar. Now for the second major theme from this week's documents. We're moving from the economy to foreign policy. And here, the focus gets really tight on one single massive achievement, one that's presented as a victory of personal diplomacy. And the centerpiece here is this document, the Trump Declaration for Enduring Peace and Prosperity. This is the big one. It's signed by the U.S. and key regional players, and it officially declares an end to the conflict in Gaza. The language is all about a truly historic commitment and opening a new chapter of hope for the entire region. But here's what's fascinating. It's not just about the announcement itself. It's about how they sold it. The White House put out a whole separate document called Widespread Acclaim, and it's basically just a greatest hits of praise from other people. And they very strategically included quotes from everyone, even political opponents. You got a quote right there from former President Joe Biden commending the deal. It's a classic strategy, right? Third-party validation. And they didn't just stop with political figures. The materials also make sure to highlight praise from major media outlets, quoting the Washington Post's editorial board. The goal is to frame this not just as our win, but as a historic, nonpartisan, universally recognized triumph, a generational accomplishment, as the Post put it.
All right, that brings us to our third pillar. And this one is all about the inner workings of government. It's a really deep focus on changing the federal workforce itself. So there was a new executive order, and it really shakes up how the government hires people. Think about it. Instead of hiring decisions being made by tons of different managers all over the place, this order pulls all that power to the top. Now, every single agency has to have a strategic hiring committee made up of top officials, and this committee has to sign off on every single new hire. The stated goal? To make sure everyone coming in is aligned with the administration's priorities. And they're definitely keeping score. A fact sheet that came out with this order boasts that this new approach is already working. They claim they've blown past their goal of having 4 people leave the government for every 1 new person they hire. That 4-to-1 ratio is being held up as a major sign of success, proof that they're making government leaner and more efficient.
Okay, so we've got these 3 huge pillars: the economy, foreign policy, and reshaping the government. But there's one more thing, a crucial piece of context. Everything we've just talked about, every single announcement, happened against one constant, unavoidable backdrop. And what is it? A government shutdown. If you go and look at any of the documents from the White House this week, I don't care if it's about truck tariffs or Breast Cancer Awareness Month, you will find this banner right at the top. It's a constant reminder framing everything they do inside this political battle.
So seeing that banner everywhere kind of forces a question, doesn't it? How exactly do you govern when the government is technically shut down? And it seems like the documents themselves are trying to answer that very question.
And when you look at the materials, a really clear 2-part strategy emerges. Part 1 is using executive power to work around the shutdown. For instance, there's a memo that directs them to use whatever funds are available to make sure the military still gets their paychecks. But Part 2 is all about political messaging. They're using their official articles to go on the attack, calling out opponents for their shutdown stranglehold.
So let's zoom out. What started as a chaotic flurry of announcements now looks pretty clear, right? It all boils down to 4 consistent pillars that tell the story the administration wants to tell. Number 1, economic nationalism. 2, big personal diplomatic victories. 3, centralizing control over the federal government. And 4, using the shutdown as a constant political weapon. That's the playbook for the week. And that really leaves us with a final question to think about. When you strip away all the daily headlines, all the noise, and you just look at the official record, the words the government itself chooses to use, what does that reveal? It shows that it's not just about what a government does, but how it tells its own story. And understanding that story, well, that's key to understanding what's really driving the decisions that shape our world.